What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Split Screen D&D, the show where we are attacking all things Dungeons and Dragons.
Boom, 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 boom.
Ooh, you hear that? Sounds like
The drums of war.
ooh, drums of war on the horizon. You know what that means. That means all things Dungeons and Dragons are getting attacked from both sides of the screen. My name's Tom Quinn, resident Dungeon Master here at Modern Myth.
And I'm Josh Winans, resident player character here at Modern Myth.
And before we dive into today's topic, I want to give a very special shout out to a group of people who have been hugely supportive. We'd love to throw some support back their way. Nerd Night News, really awesome outfit. They are producing all sorts of articles, great content. You can catch them across social media, but you can also catch them on YouTube. Jump over there, drop them a sub, drop them a like, say what's up. But they are covering all things that us nerds care about. We're talking movies, games, comics, books. I mean, the works. So get over there. Nerd Night News, thank you guys so much for all your support. We love you guys, and we will get right into it, I think.
Well, before we move on, links will be in the description to help.
Absolutely.
And also, hey, while you're feeling so generous out there, internets, why don't you take a look at your boys here and maybe drop one of them a like or two, or subscribe or hit that little bell. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh. When he starts talking like that, you can't help yourselves.
Probably can. Actually, you probably close this video immediately.
Threw up in their mouths a little bit and immediately closed the browser.
Oh, I'm done with this Modern Myth. I'm sorry.
Let's get into the topic today. 'Cause I
absolutely.
think it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah,
So,
I think so.
You want to take us in? You want me to?
I can take us in.
do
So we are very much a long form campaign. We like the 1
Even
through
by
20s.
long form standards.
Yeah, we go 1 through 20. At least that's what we're in currently. I don't know if we'll ever do this again, but it's a really fun thing. But there's something magical about not delving deep into the pools of D&D, but just giving you give your little toes a little dip in the
Just
pool.
a little dip. Just a little dip.
I'm talking about one shots.
One shots. The bane of my existence. Though I am fully prepared. The next time we sit down for a one shot, you guys are all getting a right proper one shot.
You mean no more 3-5 shots or
No more 7 to 10 shots. No more 1 to 20. No more 1 to 20 shots.
That's right.
You know, it's I think I love the idea of one shots. In fact, hopefully in the near future here, I'm going to be sitting down in DM in the PM and talking with One Shot Mill, who that's their game. So we'll see how much of what we talk about here today holds up to scrutiny.
I had no idea this was so topical here.
Well, it's that's what we do here. That's what we do.
We're on the
here.
cutting edge of D&D news here at Modern Myth. Actually, no, we're not at all, but that's okay.
No, so hey, you heard about this critical role effect? It's this brand new thing. Let's jump in on some one shots. I don't know if you want to kick us off in terms of. I know I've got some things to say, but they're going to be coming from a totally misguided and.
And I'm also in the same camp that I've only done a few one shots. So there's something magical and fun about them, and I want to explore. Really, I have more questions for you.
Okay.
What gears need to switch in your brain from going from?
I think that, and I think what I like about this conversation is I've given a ton of thought to why I have found such little success in the one shot space, and I think I fundamentally attribute it to that. Okay. Precisely that. It's a gear ratio. I generally exist. Why I sit in that seat is for the long form. It's for the big, grand, epic, long form stories unfolding, watching players kind of tell their own stories between each other and the world. But just like you, I think there are some really, really important aspects of one shots that can teach DMs and players a lot of things about even running long form games. But that gear ratio switch that you're talking about, I really do think the heart of running the one shot is going into it, not trying to make it a smaller version of a long form game. It's not that. It is not the same game, just shorter.
Yeah.
It is a totally different experience. And I really do think that and I will still say, I think in the grand scheme of things, the space that I would prefer to be if I'm running a shorter game is a few sessions, but for a true proper one shot, I really do think I think something that I love about long form games that just has to go out the window is character introductions. Again, it's one of my favorite parts about a game unfolding is characters sitting down at the table. Maybe I've worked with them in their backstories. Maybe I have an idea of who everyone is, but it's the first time you hear the persona, you see, you know, and it's the first time that the characters, those start overlapping and stepping on each other a little bit. I love that about long form. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite parts is seeing those first, let's say the first 5 sessions where the party's really kind of, there's some really cool stuff that plays out there.
Super awkward.
Gone out the window. Like just get rid of that shit. You know? I would go so far as to say I would not attempt to run a one shot in which it has not been pre-decided that I mean, this is an adventuring party that's been traveling together for some time. They know each other. They, you know, I mean, for that, even the pregame stuff, you know, the creation of those characters, I think we should be sitting down to go, hey, we're going to play a one shot. Let's make a party here. Let's do this. Or I'm not a huge fan of this. I think in some cases there's a necessity doling out actual pre-made characters. And I know that players, if I was a player, I'd much prefer to be given some constrictions to build my own character.
Right.
But one of the big upsides to one shots, and this is something that I think you touched on before we started the conversation, is there's very little attachment, both from a DM and a player side. And I actually want to pitch it back to you a little bit. Talk with me about what that does for you as a player. And maybe you can even give us a little look through the lens of a player who generally is pretty focused on the optimization of your character and the optimization of the way that character is operating in the world. I imagine that there's some liberation in the one-shot space. So talk with me as a player a little bit about that.
There's a lot. Okay, so as you're talking, it's like, that also applies to players, that you have to switch gears, backstory-wise and narratively with your character. I mean, for our long-form campaign or long-form campaigns, the backstory they can get long. You know, and when you do that for a one shot, you do this like 7-page narration, and you only play for 4 hours. Your backstory is almost more interesting than the one shot.
Right.
And that's the exact opposite. And really, in 4 or 5, however long your one shot's going to be, how much character development can really happen?
Right.
I mean, sure, some stuff can happen. But I mean, the twists and turns that can happen in a long form campaign. You might have like one where he started off a douchebag and then he saves someone and he turns into a hero. I mean, you can have something like that.
Right.
But yeah, you can't really do that. So I liked your idea of switching gears. Like, I think even as a player, you got to switch gears not to do that.
Yeah. And I think that does need to be a table wide, you know, like for our table, for instance, I certainly, the next time that we're running a one shot, I think I will be very explicit in the way I'm talking about running that game. Again, I don't think it's really in my wheelhouse, just by nature of the way I think about the game and the way I operate in the game.
Right.
But I also think I can immediately look at prior one shots that I've run and go, shouldn't have done that, shouldn't have done that. If I scrap all of those, we might have been in pretty good shape.
Right.
You know, and that's, you know, so I really think this is, and this kind of piggybacks off of another conversation that we've had, has not aired yet, but we talked about some of the differences between old school and new school D&D.
Yeah.
I actually think the one shot is a great place to take some pointers from the old school boys. One of the big considerations that they make with regard to character creation is in a game like 5th edition that is kind of character living and seeing through the end of this story centric, is there's all sorts of reason to spend weeks drumming up a character and a fancy backstory, versus an old school idea where, now we're not necessarily thinking you're dead at the end of the one shot, maybe not, but it's a similar idea. If whether you're dead or that character's just never resurfacing again, what's the point, like you said, in you know, even spending, you know, even writing up paragraphs worth of, you know, and that's one of the big things. I think, you know, they basically go, old school editions, rolling up characters was really easy because you did it a lot. And I would even go so far as to say that finding certain homebrew concepts that can streamline that process, and both process of play and process of that character creation.
Right.
But as a by and large, I really think like the players that at our table, I think and I include myself as a DM, a tremendous amount of emphasis has been placed on the nuances of those characters. Just like I need to scrap out of the window all that character introduction stuff. And I think the players need to basically be prepared to go, this is who I am, and I will end the session this same person.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't need to write in some conflict in my character arc.
Right.
We're not going there.
Right.
You know,
it's not about, it's more about the environment and the world, not your character.
Yeah. And I do think actually that, again, we get back to some of the more, let's say, fundamental early edition D&D concepts, just because I think that your classic dungeon delve, classic dungeon crawl, if it's a, sleuthing through a mystery, if that's the one shot, whatever the trope is, you're not grafting on a lot of narrative theatrics that you might be able to do in a long form campaign. And to try and do so means not only are you not going to get any payoff from those, you're not even going to get to finish the short story you're trying to tell. So I think definitely, and this all kind of falls under that banner of switching gears. One note I will say is I think that much like with a player, even if you are a DM who really goes, man, I really like doing the long form thing. There's so many things in a long form game that I might be really interested in trying.
Yeah.
But I need an environment to play test the concept in.
Right.
And it's not a great look. You can do this and you can get away with it sometimes better, sometimes worse, in a long form game. But when you're really invested in keeping things cohesive and, you don't want to roll a brand new mechanic that you've kind of been tinkering with, or a brand new system, and just kind of lay it onto your players and go, hey guys, by the way, but what better place than in a one shot to play around with, with kind of experimental mechanics and spaces. And to me, that's the liberating part of it.
And you mentioned this earlier, and I didn't take you up on it. Was you were mentioning like, hey, how do you as a min-maxer, like how do you approach one shots? And this is exactly right. I have zero problems with really going for an interesting combo mechanically that is just, I don't know if I'd ever want to take in game. So you can be like really go for pushing the power, because in the game you don't want to overshadow your players. Overshadow your fellow players. So you got to kind of walk that line. One shot, who really cares?
Right.
If you're really freaking powerful, whatever. Or what I think is even more interesting, especially as a power gamer, is to go the opposite direction. Because I will never ever build a not powerful character in a long form campaign. I'm not gonna. I would not enjoy the game.
Right.
But it's a goofy character. Your what's his name? The guy who took one level in every class.
Absurd.
Yeah, an absurd type character where it's more about just having fun and being silly.
Yeah.
And just creating this character that you wouldn't want to play more than once or twice because you get sick of them. But for that like 4 or 5 hour chunk, you just like, you're just having a ball.
Well, and I think that actually segues really well into a conversation on kind of the tonal differential. And that's not to say that you can run a one shot that is full blown horror one shot. You can run a mystery one shot. You can, but I think the cool part about a one shot, and something that kind of comes to me when I think about running a one shot, the ratchet straps that kind of crank down in my long form games on telling a serious, meaningful story.
Yeah.
Gone.
Okay.
It's another one where it's just like, who cares? I mean, if things go so off the rails that people are just cracking up and no one knows what the hell's going on, great. It's one shot.
Yeah.
to me, that's a really bad look for a long form campaign. Not
Yeah.
and in small chunks, you can have a space in a long form campaign where things go off the rails and things
You
get
mean like you take an airship and
it's like, spoiler alert on that one. But yes, and the thing is that there's absolutely room for that. In fact, I think it's a necessity in a long form serious game.
Yeah.
You need those
breaks of levity.
Yeah. But in the same regard, I don't think I would really want to play a 1 to 20 that's nothing but that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's all sorts of gray area in between.
I was gonna say, I'm sure there's a game out there that's having a ball and all they're doing.
Well, I think Dimension 20 has done a really good job of kind of enshrouding their game in a fundamentally comedic space.
Yeah.
That's a lot of that's props to Brennan Lee Mulligan because he just runs a very comedic game.
Yeah.
But it's just a very different story. And I just know, again, for me as a DM, and I'm sure there's others out there who they've kind of this world, this space that they've built, just by nature of the types of conflicts that are slowly arising, will only tolerate so much levity in certain doses. A one shot can be literally, and in fact, I actually think that our most recent one shot still a pretty serious tone. In fact, quite serious tone, all things considered,
because it's still rooted in our actual campaign.
Yeah, and actually, the one shot that really my mind draws back to when I think about our one shots, and I would say is more true to form to the way I think about one shots is the Vakos Corp, the
International Pyramid
research and development for
that was a weird
interdimensional pyramid manufacturing.
Not gonna
facility.
lie, I was just a little bit more on the wrong side of inebriated for that particular one.
I mean, again, and here's another thing. That's no problem for a one shot. Again, well, that's actually can be no problem in some cases for a long form game too. But it's just what I liked about that one shot as a hair of context for everyone at home.
Hi, people at home.
From one of our old 1 to 20s, you guys had a pretty grueling segment running through this interdimensional pyramid, and I think we
committed genocide, if memory serves.
You did, and then you actually got TPK'd, so it was kind of like a tit for tat.
Yeah.
But so here's the interesting thing: is that it was a really grueling environment. I think actually all of us were ready to be out of it long before we actually were out of it.
Yeah.
And I remember for the one shot going like, well, we all hated that environment. Like when it was done, we were just like, thank God that's over. And I remember going like, well, I'm going to use that same environment, but let's totally turn it on its ear. That, whatever, 1,000 years into the future, Karavakos is still manufacturing these. Now it's a giant corporation that's making these pyramids.
Welcome to Vaco Corp.
Welcome to Vakos Corp. And the thing is that then from square one, it was set out to be a much more levity-ridden experience, and I think that really does kind of come down to the headspace you're in as a DM when you're setting up those games. And I just I may be preaching to the choir here. I may be the only one talking on the subject, but I definitely don't think I definitely think there's people out there who will appreciate the opportunity and do appreciate the opportunity to kind of switch off from real DMing, real serious, trying to spin together important narratives and just kick back and play some beer and pizza D&D again.
Right.
And again, that's, to me, that's one of the real benefits of the one shot is I love DMing, but there's a certain amount of work-like quality to telling meaningful stories.
Right.
As much as you might enjoy that work. And I just think that, again, that a lot of that goes out of the window. So I think.
Well, and just thinking about that, if I were a DM, just thought about it, it's disgusting. But if I were to be a DM and I was constantly in a serious campaign, it would be just going outside your wheelhouse. Like we tell dramas. All right. Oh, now we're telling a horror story. Oh, that'd be kind of and maybe you learn some lessons you can bring into the main campaign. I think it's basically what we're just summing up there.
Yeah, but I love what you touched on there. I don't know if it's been said explicitly, but take those things that you find that work really well because you have an opportunity to push the envelope in those one-shot spaces. Yeah. So like using the example you had, really going for a horror vibe.
Yeah.
maybe you're, and this is not to say, again, you can't have places throughout your world. There could be a place that's full-blown haunted. The whole vibe is horror. Well, great. Maybe you got to figure out what really sells that in that. Again, I think it's a really good way of thinking about it as a playtesting space almost.
Yeah.
Because again, if you get to the end of the day and you as a DM went like, I didn't care for that much, and your players go, I didn't care for that much. You've learned a lot about
And
that session.
Very little, like, oh, well, that was that. No, we don't pick it up. It's not part of your long form campaign.
Right.
So
And you walking away from the table and going like, that just wasn't it.
yeah.
There's arguably more to learn in that moment than there is in the moment where you go like, that was so much fun.
I forget the quote, but we learn more from our failures and our successes, that
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
idea.
And I think that is a call to, when you are in that one-shot space, fail. Because if you're playing reserved, like it's your long form game, like you're staying too guarded, you're not, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
really push the envelope. That to me is the liberating factor of a one-shot game. Push the envelope to the point that you start to lose grasp of what it is. Like, when you know where that line is, then you can kind of say, okay, in my other games, I don't want to go that far.
Right.
But I figured out where my boundaries. I figured out how silly I can be before I start getting to be an annoying asshole.
Yeah.
I figured out how, and that's an important
It is.
place to find. So a big thing I've thought about a lot, and one shots are a good place to express this, is there are all sorts of places, both as a DM and a player. I'm going to speak from the DM standpoint. I'd actually love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Where you can avoid places as a DM,
Okay.
skill sets that you might have to tap into. This is coming off of the heels of the notorious or infamous advice of don't over prep as a DM.
Okay.
So this is where this is kind of coming from. But I think in the context of a one-shot space, it works really well, is if you were always prepped to the T, like literally you are just super, super well prepped, you might never find yourself in a place. You might find yourself in a place where you're doing improv with your players, but not on any of the plot points. You're just, okay, I'm improving this conversation,
Right.
but I know exactly where this plot is ultimately headed. I know where allowing yourself to find yourself in that space where you're like, I don't know what the hell's around the next corner. That is a skill set that you need to sharpen. And I will say the exact same thing about virtually every boundary you can push as a player or a DM. And I don't want to speak for players. I do want you to speak to this. But allow yourself to find the places where you start going, I'm way out of my comfort zone. And over the course of that 3, 4, 5 hour one-shot space, get out the file and sharpen those skills a little bit, because you don't know when you may find yourself there inadvertently.
Right.
And you might as well have a sharp tool when you get there.
Yeah.
Then go, I don't know. I'm not, and so there's a big thing I would be advocating for a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
But talk to me in the player space of being, I guess, and sometimes maybe you don't have as much control over putting yourself in those positions, but you may sometimes by other players or by the DM be put in positions where you are less comfortable in that space. Maybe I'm speaking in DM speak here, and this isn't a applicable thing to players or as much.
Well, the thing is, for me, and the way I play in long form, is I'm not a big prepper. I have a basic idea of what I want to happen during that game, but I don't do much besides that. So for me, a one shot is a very similar feel.
Okay.
So I can't speak to that. Now, that being said, if you really like spinning, like it might be fun to be able to let your hair down a little bit, and then to do that, I could definitely see that. But for me personally, that's kind of how I play the regular game anyway. But even then, to be able to explore skill sets that you might not normally explore, because D&D 5e is such a social pillar heavy.
Right.
This is where it's flipped on its head. That exploration and combat
Really become king. Yeah.
So this is a great place to explore that as a player. because especially like if you're clearing a dungeon and that's your one shot, you darn well know there's going to be some traps in there. I mean, so then you get to practice that skill set.
Right.
What I got to do with Hakeem Shashin, which is a guy I played and I mentioned quite a bit, he was a coward, which is the exact opposite of characters I play. My characters are always ready to fight.
Right.
So that was a really interesting thing.
Well, and so that maybe is actually a pretty good example of what I'm talking about is, as a player from an RP standpoint, would you say there was some discomfort in trying to run a character who was, I mean, archetypically the opposite end of the spectrum?
Yeah, not really, because it was so much fun. Because I created just such a fun character.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun. And
I had no problems living in that headspace. Being interesting to be like a evil character and really take on that evil character, and you know,
and maybe that's a better example of kind of. But I just think that whatever skill sets we are exercising when we're at the table in whatever kind of game, long form games, short form games, those I think that we can through preparation, through actions at the table, insulate ourselves in some cases against certain skill sets being used more often. And I think that certainly as a DM, you're doing yourself a disservice to not allow yourself, especially in a space as safe as a one shot, to allow those that's a good way I think of thinking about pushing your envelope in those spaces. If you don't improv much, maybe don't prep for your one shot at all, or prep very, very little. You know what I mean? And put yourself in a spot where by the end of the session, your players might be going like, "Dude, did you do any prep?" And you go like, "Nope, no, I didn't. Did you have a good time? Like, what did you?" And they might go like, "It's not as good as your long form, whatever." But no doubt you had some opportunity to be in a headspace that you would never allow yourself to be in your long form games.
Which is a question I've been wanting to ask from the beginning, but I wanted to hold off till we get to kind of, I feel like we've really fleshed this out.
Yeah.
How, I think a valuable lesson we've been hinting at this entire time is one shots can be a great teacher, teach you lots of lessons to transfer over to your long form campaign. Yes. So, what would you say are the biggest lessons that is it just living outside your comfort zone and taking your weaknesses and sharpening those up? Is that like one of the biggest?
Well, ones? I think it's a very non-committal place to do that. I mean, in the same way that you probably aren't trying that brand new trick shot in the NBA Finals.
Right.
You're probably trying it in practice when you're. But I will say I actually think probably one of the biggest takeaways, and it's no wonder I consider pacing to be one of the most challenging aspects of running the game. Certainly as we've gotten more and more into this enterprise and some of the shoots, I've been thinking more and more about pacing, but I think it's no wonder why when I sit down kind of in one-shot territory, it's like, all right, I'm out of my comfort zone. It's a great example of just being in one-shot territory. I'm kind of out of my comfort zone. And I think that's a big takeaway for players and DMs alike is one-shots can be a very, very valuable teaching tool for managing pacing. You've got 4 hours to do something meaningful. It's not going to be an overarching, 3-volume
this is
epic
Diablo
tale
style dungeon crawl, maybe, or something.
And I think if you really are let's say a narrative centric DM, you really what's important to you is telling a meaningful story.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you can't in 4 hours tell a meaningful story, but that becomes the challenge,
right?
Because anyone, and I mean anyone, I could grab a chimp and be like, "Hey, chimp, here's the DMG. You've got 2 hours. You're running a one shot in,
And it writes Shakespeare, right?
That's, that
what monkeys do with typewriters? They forget.
They run one shots. They
that's
write,
what they do.
A fully homebrewed, fleshed out, beautiful world.
Wow, this
I'm
is very well balanced.
It's 6 new classes with 4 subclasses each. This chimp is amazing. But no, the thing is
we just exposed Wizards of the Coast. That's how they do it.
Yeah, well,
just kidding.
It's
just kidding.
You just pissed off.
I just pissed off. No, they do a great job. Sorry,
serious Wizards writers. No, but it really is a space where I think running players through just kind of a rules as written experience, that is the bare minimum. That's the bar to entry for a one shot.
Right.
Because like, let's strip any narrative out, and I just go, you're a fighter, you're a wizard, you're a rogue, you're a cleric.
Okay.
Cool. Classic party. You guys are off. There's a dungeon ahead of you. There's treasure you want in that dungeon. Go. And then maybe I put some traps in there. Maybe I put some monsters. There's treasure in there.
Yep.
You do it. Who can't run that? Anyone can run that.
Yeah.
I think the real test, and this is the aspect where you start challenging pace. You will be challenged on pace to some extent to just get it done. But the real test, I think, is to take that same experience and provide some meaningful motivation. And that might even be like that's one shot goals. That's for once I just get them through the damn dungeon.
Right.
But I think that's really the space that that if you're big on narrative and story and those things, that is not to say just abandon it outright.
Right.
But it really will be a test of your skill as a storyteller to fit something meaningful in that space. And that's something, I mean, I'm eager to run our next one because I've given it so much more thought than I ever have as of late, to sit down and implement a lot of the things I've been thinking about, and then going, okay, now my test, now that I've got kind of the little adventure laid out, is what am I going to inject into this space to make the players care about what they're doing?
Right.
Because again, hacking up monsters and collecting loot, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we can add that extra layer of, here's why you're doing it, and you feel something about what you're doing, I think that's a stratification above the barrier, the baseline entry for your one shot.
Right.
So,
right.
One other consideration, player side, that I would be really interested in hearing about is, what are your thoughts on almost every player that I know has more characters than they're possibly ever going to run. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah. But I actually think even people who aren't really prolific with their character building, they've got ideas floating around there, and certainly there's space for DMs to exercise and play around with things that they may not feel comfortable trying in their, we'll call their main games, their long form games. What I really like from a player standpoint is, like, I would love to see Hakeem Shashim again.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty is a one shot is kind of a player opportunity to give an elevator pitch to all of their buddies who game with them on, hey, this is what I've had rolling around in my head for a while.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there's nothing to say that another one shot down the road, or a 5 shot down the road, or a 3 to 10 down the road, or a 1 to 20 down the road, that you might go, I loved being in those shoes. I loved being in that skin.
Right.
So talk with me a little bit about kind of using the one shot as an audition process for ideas in your head, and being able to weed out ones that maybe in your head were great and just didn't play so well on the table, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what Hakeem Shashim was. His personality was something I was just having fun with. But the mechanics was, he was a bard warlock multi-class.
Oh, the classic bardlock.
Bardlock.
You
and I,
son of a gun.
with the Hexblade subclass, because I'm all about that. But so really it was a test of the mechanical stuff. That being said, I did end up making him slightly different for his Eldritch abilities. He did do more controlling. It wasn't damage. It was, if he got hit, he got pushed and slowed.
Yep.
Which, that's a fun combination to have on a cantrip.
Yeah.
But
pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it was just, but it was didn't do damage. It was all control. So that was the idea. I was like, because I'm in my next character, I'm trying to decide who I wanted to play. I was like, let's just see how this Bardlock feels. And I don't think I could see me playing as a 1 through 20 for sure. But it's definitely a fun time to play out characters. Maybe personality types, maybe, but the thing is because it's so concentrated, it's just a one shot. Maybe play with a quirk or something to see if you like it. Like, hey, I want to play with an alcoholic character.
Oh, exactly.
Okay.
And yeah, no, keep going.
So okay, and then figure out, hey, what implications will that have? Would I be willing to deal with that quirk for 20 levels or whatever?
Right. And I think you can do some really fun things by way of just the context that you're instantiating in that game. I mean, you could make a one shot where everyone has to have a quirk. It's just a requirement of the one shot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a fun space to be able to again go. This is something I wouldn't really wish upon my 1 to 20, but it's maybe something fun to play around with in this space.
And it might like I know Taliesin is really good at putting in pretty severe weaknesses in his characters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I mean, I think you can totally do it in a 1 through 20. It does take a little bit more care, I think.
Yeah.
But
well, and I think the cool part is there is a narrative incentive that you can tie into that can be a weakness you overcome. That can be something that drags your character into the blackness of a morally black area. Who knows?
But how many books have you read where it's like, oh, it's a perfect person the whole entire time, and yay, it's just perfect. Everything they do is perfect. It's boring.
Yeah.
Thinking of the new Star Wars movie, the Rey Skywalker, who is just as instantly good at everything. It's like, well, I don't.
Right.
You're not Luke, who trained.
You don't
and
get
overcame
the sense of growth in that space. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And I guess that's interesting because obviously you won't get that sense of growth in a one shot.
No.
But what I love that you were talking about in terms of quirks, I think there's all sorts of quirks you can play with that have no mechanical basis.
Yeah.
You could have a stutter if you wanted to play around with that.
That'd be interesting.
You could be blind. I mean, now obviously that has mechanical implications.
Be a
you
monk
could
with
talk
blind
with
sense or something like
that.
that.
I mean, there are all sorts of interesting stuff you can do.
Yeah.
But you could play a character that had not the Braves voice, Sam Riegel style. Like it still blows me away that was what he brought to the table. And I mean, I ended up loving the character. But I remember right when he first presented Not, he even made mention this is it. This is the one. You know, and but the thing is that like, what better place to be able to play around and tweak those and go like, I was starting to annoy myself by the end of the one shot. So maybe I want to pull that back. But it's a great place to take those aspects and really be able to attack them. And like I said, I think I would advocate, and this is for DMs and players alike, is go more aggressive. Find where that line is.
Yeah, this is the time to push the limits.
Because you might play a character and go, man, I love them. I wonder if I had gone a little further with that. I wonder if I had taken that to a more extreme place. Maybe you'd find that it's even more interesting. Maybe you'd find no, but it's 4 hours.
Yeah.
Or again, I keep saying 4 hours, whatever length of time your session is. But and I think so. I think that's something to absolutely keep in mind. And I mean, I think as a whole, we've existed in this really important sphere for one shots, and I think it. Oh, go ahead.
I was about to say because we've been talking about how serious, and that got me thinking that I think the most truly beneficial thing of one shots is they're almost like a palate cleanser. If you're running a long form campaign and all of a sudden you bring in a one shot, it can be a breath of fresh air and just it's like eating lots of sushi and then you get that pickled ginger, clear everything up, and now you're ready for more sushi.
Nice.
You know?
No, I think that's such an apt analogy. And it may even be worth considering for everyone out there who are doing on the long form grind on those 1 to 20s, to maybe think about the one shot as a tool in your toolbox to kind of provide a little bit of that relief, that release. And you may come to find that it's kind of a weird thing to say, like, hey, we're going to run a totally different session that has nothing to do with what we're doing. I've never met a player who's not like, I would love an opportunity to run a different character and play around,
Yeah, like, one shots are amazing for player characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love them.
And so I don't see that, but I'm not sure, and I like that you hit on this, that DMs are always thinking about the one shot as one of the many tools, in the repertoire of ways that we can enhance the experience at the table. Maybe you're in a slog, an absolute grueling monkey on the player's back slog to whatever that MacGuffin is that's in a horrendous place.
Right.
Maybe it's been 3, 4, 5 sessions of
just
really being pushed down on as a player.
Right.
What a cool way for them to show up for a session and go, hey guys, I think you guys have been crushing it at the table, and I really think like everyone wouldn't mind just a breath of fresh air on this one. Let's do XYZ.
It does often feel like one shots are rewards. You know, like, hey,
that's a great way of thinking about it.
Hey, it's Halloween. Let's have a reward. Let's relax. Let's have a one shot.
Yeah. Speaking of Halloween, I was thinking it would be a really fun one shot to run a one shot in which your actual characters you play in your regular game are just dressed up in costume as what they want to play in the one shot. So Kel can put on like a ranger outfit and
that'd be weird. That'd be a head.
It'd be a weird. It would be a weird like you. I mean,
you'd have to give me a hot like. That's gonna take some time. I could just show up the table and improv that one.
No. But it just jumped in my head as like, that'd be interesting.
I like that idea. Or what was it? I love. I think they did. What's that one show again? Critical Role, yeah. Where Grog ran a one shot in the game as Grog.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my god, that is beautiful how they did that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing is I think the one shots, and this is really I think the last thing I've got to say on one shots before we kind of get into our summary. But I love that you kind of open this can of worms because there's actually a ton. One shots as rewards, beautiful. I love that idea. Even and talking about integrating into the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that MacGuffin they've been slogging towards is some kind of strange orb, and when they place their hand on it, they're sucked into another dimension where they're totally different characters, and you literally run a one shot.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And and so it's literally a reward. And in that one shot, maybe they collect copious amounts of treasure, and it just you can.
No, it's got to be killing rats and collecting dairy products.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I will.
That's all it is.
I will.
All one shots can be is killing rats and
fetch quests. And fetch quests for farmers who should be doing their own damn dairy collection. I'm sorry. Like, does someone not work for you? I
swear to God,
Mr. McMullen.
Oh, have you seen, there's this one awesome. I forget which YouTube channel does it. It's like a death knight. Just beginning, and he's like doing all the fetch quests.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen that. Yeah,
it's amazing.
So, but on that note, so definitely using them as rewards, I think that's great, and keeping them in mind as this is a tool that we have at our disposal. Both of those are really, really potent ways of thinking about one shots. I think the last thought I have is a one shot is also a great place for other people at the table who might want to run the game.
Oh yeah.
So, and again,
I've often expressed
there might be.
This just makes me gross thinking about me donning the cloak of a DM.
Well, it's I'll have you know I generally wear nothing underneath that cloak. So when you're putting it on, it's going to be a little sticky in there. It's
Tuesday.
It's no, but it I really think it's a great place. And again, you see a lot of the big actual plays engage in this activity because again. Every DM has their own voice. Everyone and just by nature of changing seats, just everyone rotate to the right. Now all of a sudden you're in a space where no matter what they're running, it's gonna have there's a new flavor to it.
And how nice is that for as a DM where you can be like, you know what? I can just be a player.
Yeah.
Just to relax a little bit.
Yeah. And so it's like I said, I think it's kind of that fits under the umbrella of it being
Come
a
to
reward.
The dark side. Come be a player again.
Come be a player.
You know you want to.
It's been so long since I've been in the player seat, and I mean, I think what we need to do is we're gonna have to shoot an episode where, I mean, it sounds like you're probably next in line for secession, but
I would love to see an Amanda or Ariel one shot. That'd be amazing.
I would love to see. Honestly, I'd love to do a whole series, maybe do a 4-shot, but where the DM changes every time. That would be really fun.
I pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
I like
and
that.
You could do whatever you want with the story.
That's fun. Yeah. I like that. That's
actually
idea.
I think that might be coming down the pipeline.
Great idea.
That might be coming down the pipeline.
You can't have that internet. That's ours.
Yeah, we did it first. Copyrights, trademarks.
Yeah, I don't know what we need to say, but we did.
I don't know the legal stuff, but know that we're gonna get that sorted out.
Yep.
No, I think with that, final thoughts as a player, or maybe kind of
sum up.
Give me a sum up on. Why one shots? What's good about
one shots? Our players are just fantastic. So as a player, it's we all have that catalog of characters. Explore it. Maybe it's mechanical that you want to see. Like, hey, is this a cool mechanical character I might want to explore later on? Who knows? Maybe you want to be more powerful. Maybe explore the weaker side of things just because it's different and it's fun. Maybe a personality thing. space to explore these ideas. But overall, it's a place to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's where one shots, that's what is so magical about them, is there's tons of opportunity to be silly and not a lot of repercussions.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. And I think, I actually think that can graft verbatim into the DM sphere is, I think there's so many times as DMs, even though it may not be repercussions in the same sense, we are considering that we're at point A and we need to get to point, I don't know, W by the time this is all said and done,
right.
and as they're moving through, and they might get there in all sorts of crazy ways, but we, to some extent, are kind of sheep herding a broader narrative as we move through this space. Obviously you want to give that as much room to flourish in the organic ways that it wants to move. Again, all of that goes out the window. Kind of, you can take off the armor of needing to optimize. You can take off the armor of needing to manage really anything.
You could be like, hey, what's that shopkeeper's brother's name? His name's go screw yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can, and I think that is really, that's the reward to DMs. In often cases, it's the reward to players.
Yeah.
I think it's something that, and again, it's actually going to become a major point of my sum up. Think about that space as a tool. It's not just, hey, it's any other game night, in the same way you'd employ certain monsters in an encounter, certain encounters in an environment, certain narrative hooks. I mean, all of these things, there are some awesome ways that you can tie one-shots directly into your long-form game. You can step away entirely from your long-form game and do something totally untethered. Right. And there's a ton of value in being able to still sit down, keep the momentum of play going,
right?
Without going, hey guys, I know you've been grinding, you've been working through this big murder dungeon, whatever it is. So that's, and again, I don't think I'd articulated it that way, but I will from now on be thinking about one-shots as how can I utilize this as a tool in a broader spectrum of tools to enhance the experience at the table. I love that.
Well, and I don't want to, because we're wrapping up so well, but just a thought came across. I mean, this is how we
the world is yours. No, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, DM. It's my fault. I deserve this. But because we use this with our one shot, it's also very quickly wonderful way to bring in new players.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, you have veterans players set up. Hey, bring in a person who's interested in D&D where they can see it. Hey, a very quick, a shotgun blast to the face of D&D.
Yeah,
and then they can decide from there if they want to start going fast.
This Tuesday. I think I love it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that, but it just came across my mind there.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's worth tacking in. It's a great place. It's a great non-committal way, because again, we're talking about not spending a week building a character, only to have someone sit at the table and go like, this is not for me.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a great place to be able to, it's one of the few places, even with new characters or new players, that I would feel good handing them a pre-generated character and go like, don't worry, you may not love this character by the end, but you'll know what you're doing.
Right. And then 4 hours he's dead anyway, because I'm going to kill him, because that's what DMs do.
Oh, I thought you meant as a player you're going to kill him. And I was going to go like, man, you are a sadistic
Yeah, every new player, I make sure I kill them.
Jeez. Immediately dump your entire action economy into killing him and be like, you suck at this game. Get off my table. That's how we introduce new players at
That's
Modern
why I'm
Myth.
popular at tables.
No, I think I love that you tack those in, because I really do think that's a great note. No, I think that sums up both sides of certainly the aspects of one-shots that
I don't know about you, but I'm wanting to play one-shot all of a sudden.
I think we better get on it. We better start organizing the one-shot. I am very interested to see. I'm going to reach out to One Shot Mill.
Yeah.
And say, hey, before our conversation, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we said, and maybe it's even a point of conversation we can have in our conversation.
Because we're talking to a master. We're just
he is.
We're just
master.
dabblers.
I'm just dabbling.
I like to dabble.
Every Tuesday, I'm dabbling a little bit.
Oh, I know.
Let's
turn off these cameras.
The world is yours.